So unlike the last video, since I focused on the basics, I feel like this video is going to help a lot more people, whether you've just started playing recently or you've been playing for a while. Some players have trouble aiming. You may try and practice all you can, but you can't seem to improve your aim, or maybe your equipment is limiting you. Maybe your mouse isn't all too good, or your FPS is kinda low. This type of stuff can all definitely make it pretty hard to aim, and you could be stuck in a slump, unable to rank up because you don't know how to improve. Well, I have good news for you. Even with poor aim, you could get as high as Masters. Trust me, I've seen it done. And I don't mean getting boosted by another player either. You yourself can improve and contribute in your games enough to earn your way up to Master. Good aim definitely helps, but it isn't the be-all end-all of skill. The best players aren't the best because of their aim. Aim alone can only get you so far. The best players are the best because they have extensive game knowledge, great game sense, and great awareness. These things are all much more important than aim, and they're mental, not physical, so improving on them is much easier, and there's nothing that can hold you back from improving on them but you. So if you don't have very good aim, not all is lost. If anything, there's much more to be gained. Now first, we need to talk about characters. There are plenty of characters in this game who don't rely on aim to do well and be impactful. Hi-Rez has put together a vast roster of characters that complement every different type of player. So primarily, the roles you're going to want to focus on are frontline and support. While damage and flank may be fun, if you struggle mechanically, they're going to be more of a liability to you than an asset. So currently, the frontlines and supports you're going to want to choose from are Ashe, Barrick, Fernando, Anara, Terminus, Torvald, Genos, Ying, and Ceres. When it comes to these characters, either their weapons don't require good aim to be used effectively, or they have powerful utility that can be used to get value out of them without having to aim very well, or both. Now, new characters are being added all the time, so if you're watching this video in the future, keep that in mind so you can decide if a newer character has those things. Look at these weapons I'm putting up on screen right now. None of these require very much aim. Ashe's flak cannon explodes in an AoE, Fernando's flamethrower and fireball hit a large area, and Terminus's axe hits anything on a screen if he's close enough. Good aim or not, these weapons can still be used effectively. This will help you out, but they're not the main focus of this video. The main focus is to show you guys what skills you can improve on and show you how to do it. So let's look at Fernando because I think he's a perfect example. We've already gone over how his weapon isn't hard to use, but a lot of people think Fernando is only a character that walks forward, holding the trigger, and he just puts up his barrier when he gets low. He has more depth to that. No character is that simple. Every character is more than what they appear to be. You notice how most Fernandos just stand on the point with their barrier up and they aren't even blocking anything? Or maybe you've seen the extreme case of it like I have, where two Fernandos are standing on the point with their barriers up, staring at each other, and neither of them is doing anything useful. You want to learn how to use a character's utility correctly. With a character like Fernando, you want to be able to read a situation and be able to correctly decide when to attack and be aggressive, and when to be defensive and use your barrier. You want to be looking around often to see what's happening with your teammates, and making mental notes of what they're doing. As a tank, you are the forefront of your team. They rely on you to draw attention away from them and protect them when they're in trouble. So here's an in-game example. Me and Ruckus are pushing down mid together. We aren't being too aggressive, we're just staying together on the payload so they can't easily contest. The enemy Makoa sees two tanks coming in close, so he spins out to safety as Ceres moves up to help him. Because of that spin, Ceres is left alone and I see my opportunity to be aggressive. I want to get the pick on the lone Ceres because with her dead, they have a very low chance of defending. So I move into her and get her very low. Then Makoa comes up to protect her. But at this point, there's no saving her. I know I have enough health to tank the Makoa's damage and get the kill. He hooks me, but that only gets me closer to her and makes it easier for me to confirm the kill. Once I toss the fireball out for the killing blow, I run away because I don't want to throw my life away fighting the Makoa. He does have more health than me. With both his healer dead and my team behind me, I know he won't push after me for the kill. Especially since he doesn't know if I have my barrier ready or not. I stick to the payload so Mal can heal me, and I see Xin up top about to drop down on the Makoa. I immediately go to engage so he doesn't have all the attention on him. Makoa's barrier makes this a bit difficult, but my presence means the tanks can't push on Xin freely. I am now faced with both tanks, and I'm at half health, so I barrier, knowing my team is close behind and can make use of it. Both barriers end up going up, but look at the difference here. My barrier is allowing my Damba to easily heal me, and my positioning with it is keeping my team from taking any fire. The enemy Fernando is leaving an opening with his. He drops the barrier and starts to push. I try to move in to block him, but he's getting through and my barrier is losing its value. It is keeping the Seris from ulting, but it's okay if I drop it because my ult is up to counter it. Knowing that, I drop my barrier to bait out her ult. The second I hear her yell, "Gaze!" I ult. Unfortunately, Mao still ends up dying, but regardless, I think this is still a good example. A lot of Fernandos don't know how to ult either. They'll ult when they're low and alone and end up dying anyway and wasting it. Fernando's ult is there to protect his team, and it counters practically every other ult in the game, so you want to have it for when your team really needs it. Now, that was a Fernando clip, but you could apply that to any tank really. You want to be paying attention to the situation. If you notice there's an opening to be aggressive safely, like with that Seris, or if you notice one of your teammates has an opening to be aggressive, then jump on it and help them out so they can make the most out of it. If you find that you're in over your head, or there's no opportunities to be aggressive, then play safe and close to your team so your enemy can't push in on them and wait for an opportunity to arise. Also, since half of your job is protecting your team, you need to be keeping a mental note of what the enemy is doing, just like you would with your teammates. If you see both enemy tanks are in front of you and behind those tanks are a DPS and a healer, then you know one enemy is missing. If you have the combat UI on, which you really should, I really recommend turning that on in the settings, then you could see if that fifth enemy is dead or not. If they're not, then you know they're probably flanking, so you want to keep an eye out for them so they don't get in your backline. Now, while tanks have the same core characteristics and play similarly, there are some differences between tanks. Like with Torvald, you can do all that as well, but his main utility is in his bubble. So you need to be able to correctly decide who to bubble and when to bubble them. Like I said about tanks already, you have to be paying attention to your whole team so you know what's happening to them. That way, you can see if your flank is about to go in and needs a bubble, or if your support is about to get jumped and needs one. You also want to be able to decide when's the best time and who's the best target to silence. You may see an Ashe playing aggressively, and you know her only escape has a clear windup that you can silence her during to keep her from getting away. Or maybe you know the Ashe has her ult, and her using it could open up a lot of space for her team. So you get her low and silence her as she uses it so your team can finish her off, instead of silencing her at full health, hoping your team will burst her down fast enough. Then there's a similar scenario where Ashe is low and is gonna ult, but maybe it's an overtime and they haven't moved the payload very far. In that case, you'd want to not silence her and let her get off the ult, because it'll allow her to waste it instead of saving her from making her own mistake. Then to quickly sum up the other tanks, Anaras need to be able to decide the proper time to wall and need to decide who to cripple. Barrack needs to know what areas he can lock down and set up in on what maps and when he can set up on them. Terminus needs to be able to know what to block with his power siphon and how to make use of its resource bar so he can get the most out of it. Ashe mainly just focuses on when to be aggressive and bully targets, and when to stay back and poke. I would love to go into detailed in-game examples on all of them, but I don't want to overload this video. As I start to put out character guides, I'll go over in-game scenarios with specific characters. Now let's talk about the supports. Supports also need to be able to read a situation well. They also need to know what their teammates and enemies are doing so they can position themselves in a way that's going to keep them as safe and give them as much line of sight on their teammates as possible. Let's go ahead and look at an in-game example of positioning. So we're on Stone Keep and about to push it in. My Cassie has the left side covered, my Fernando has mid, and my two flanks have upper right. This allows me to safely go under the catwalk on right, so I can use the wall to my right as cover. This opening gives me a full view of Cassie and Fernando. As for my flanks, I can just poke out a bit behind the little fountain on the wall and look up at them to heal them as long as they keep themselves visible to me. The only way the enemy is going to be able to get me is if they drop down from behind, but my flanks have the catwalk locked down so they can't get through easily. Even if they somehow are able to quickly slip by my flanks, I have my movement ability up and ready. Another big thing about supports is target prioritization. You need to be able to look at what's happening and correctly decide who to heal and when. Many supports will focus on keeping the tanks at full health, and they'll only really heal their DPSs if the tanks are full. That's not good. You want to heal allies based on what's happening, not based on their class. If a tank is at half health and they're behind a barrier and your DPS is low and barely holding on, it's better to heal the DPS because the tank will survive long enough for you to get a heal on them. Now with Seris, there's a lot of leeway because her cooldown is so low. So if you mess up, you can cancel your heal, wait 1.5 seconds, and heal the right target. With Lenos and Ying, it's different. Genos has around a 5 to 6 second cooldown, so you really need to be making the right call every time you press the heal button. But as far as positioning goes, you have a lot of leeway there since you can heal through walls. Ying doesn't really let you pick who you want to heal unless you're running her life exchange talent. So your main thing with her is positioning, and not just for yourself. You need to have proper positioning for 3 of you since you need to position your illusions properly as well. You need to put them down in places where they can see your teammates, but at the same time they have to be put in places that will allow you to safely get out if you teleport to them with Dimensional Link. Here's another thing about the combat UI with Ying too. It allows you to see your entire team's health bars easily. So if multiple people are low, you can see it all in one place and ult to save them all. So to sum it all up, if you're a player who has trouble aiming but you still want to contribute as much as you can to your team and rank up as high as you can, then you want to focus on the characters I mentioned and work towards improving your game sense, situation reading, awareness, and expanding your game knowledge. The better you are at those things, the better you'll be at the game, and again, being good at those things is so much more important than having good aim. So hopefully many of you found that helpful. I feel like even if you have good aim or not, you could still learn something from this video. So yeah, that's pretty much it guys. I want to thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it, and I'm going to see you guys later. Bye!